on Soundgarden, this like it's okay not to pretend like everything's great, girls, girls, girls. No, we're going to talk about like something is coming apart. So anyway, they said by 2005, give or take 3 years, there's going to be an inciting incident. And that inciting incident will likely be economic, and it will steamroll into many other things. They mentioned Bill Gates and vaccine agendas in one sentence. They said the possibility for a pandemic. They said the possibility for rural gangs and or urban gangs and rural militias, at each other's throats. I think BLM and Proud Boys and that kind of stuff, all the way to weapons of mass destruction, or the thought of weapons of mass destruction, a plane being hijacked by terrorists, and then it all potentially comes back on the country itself as a false flag attack. And I'm just like, 97, like most of these things come to pass.
So the gist is, aside from their, the predictions they put out, that we're seeing to a certain degree, it's that the fourth turning is the fourth season, the fourth generation or 20-year period where some great catastrophe happens. And so we're supposed to be in that right now, and the culmination is what? It ends 2028, but it should be culminating 2026, like the peak, the climax, the crescendo.
Which is the 250-year birthday of the U.S., which, who's that person who said, I forget what his name is, but he says empires only last 250 years. That's its life expectancy. And in every fourth turning, the most advanced weapons of war will be used. So the last one you see, obviously, Nagasaki, Hiroshima. This time around, we were talking last time, like, what do you think it would be? You think it would be bigger bombs or more death and destruction? And you said something that I thought was very on point, which was like the mind. It's psychological warfare, and what we're talking about now, and then dovetailing into the metaverse. I think it's that, and also this technology that potentially even frequency-wise can modulate hormones.
That focus, macro.
I think it's already being used. And I would say that there's a lot of people who say that, fourth turning is only like 75 to 80% correct. And I'm like, they wrote it in 97. If they were 50% correct, that's incredible.
Right.
So
is it...
hold on. Joe Biden, remember, you did that thing where he was talking about the New World Order?
Yeah.
He says in that, every 3 to 4 generations, there's this big, I forget the exact word that he uses.
First, he said something funny. I was in a high security meeting. Military guy told me this, and it's like, Joe, please don't leak
Stop.
top clearance information. But what he was saying was that a high-ranking military officer told him that effectively the Strauss-Howe generational theory was correct, or at least alluded to this idea. Joe Biden says 60 million people died, or whatever, and so he says there's going to be a new world order. And he's referring to the liberal world order, and what they're saying is it's changing now with this coming conflict, and there's going to be a new one, and we have to lead it. So it sounds like even Joe Biden thinks things are going to escalate. But let me revise my previous position and entertain a possibility here. In the fourth turning, the most powerful weapons are used, and we talked about this. Maybe it's social media, the psychological manipulation and control of the population. If you can get a country to worship you without firing a single bullet, of course you would. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's easier, it's safer, right? It's more efficient. You save resources. You don't take out power plants you might need in the future. But now what we're seeing in Russia, Zelensky, he keeps screaming bloody murder. He's warning now that Russia will use nuclear weapons. I got to be honest. He came out and was like, "Oh no, the nuclear power plant," and the International Nuclear Committee, or whatever this group was like, "Oh, no, everything's fine." They weren't going after the reactors. I'm like, this guy, I get it. He's desperate for help. Ukraine is being beaten down. Russia is firing missiles, all that stuff. But then when he comes out and says they're going to use nukes, I go, oh, really? And then I see on Russian TV, they're like, NATO is supplying weapons to Ukrainians, and they sank our flagship. If the Russians believe the sinking of their Black Sea flagship was NATO and not Ukraine, which they probably do, because let's be real, Ukraine is said to be one of the only countries, or the only country to become poorer since the fall of the Soviet Union. They have the capability to sink a Russian flagship. Russia denies it at first. They claim credit. If Russia really does believe that NATO is supplying forces, NATO is attacking them, why wouldn't Russia say, nukes.
Hitler, that's why he declared war on the United States, because they were running weapons to Britain when Britain was at war with Germany, before the United States and Germany ever got to war. The thing about Hitler was a genocidal maniac. Putin doesn't seem like it. He just seems like he wants the territory. So I don't think he's going to go to world war. I don't think he's going to declare war on NATO. But I mean, if they keep blowing up Russian ships with NATO weapons, what choice does Russia have at that point? I mean, you could always surrender. They could always surrender.
What if Putin
Or
was
call
just
a
like-
white peace and just end it.
What if Putin was like, you know, I don't want the world to end, so I quit. And then they just
That's
stop.
happened many times in the past.
Really?
If you fight a war to a stalemate and both sides decide, it's called a white peace. It's over. There's no victory terms. No one wins. No one wins.
You brought up Hitler. Have you heard of Tim Snyder? He writes about like Ukraine and Hitler's Eastern Front more than Hitler's Western Front, and he's fully convinced that, and I think he's written 7 books on it, that Ukraine was Hitler's Eastern aim and maybe the whole aim. He like the whole colonization that was happening at that time. They were a little behind, potentially World War I. I'm not as advanced as Tim Snyder was, but he said that his eyes were fixed on Ukraine, and so like that's an interesting tidbit of history there in Ukraine. And also, like I don't want to side rail it, but this is a book by Yuri Shilov, Ancient History of Arata, Ukraine, 20,000 BC to 1000 CE. So it goes through a lot of history. The ancient history of Ukraine is incredible, and a lot of the spots where there are these burial mounds with like 63 caves underneath and petroglyphs that seem to be Proto-Sumerian. So prior to Göbekli Tepe, the earliest civilization where agriculture comes from, seems to be right in this area. And I mean, there's something really interesting about like the ancient history of Ukraine, that also where the symbol of the swastika, and some even say the yin yang symbol may have originated there. That the Russians, the Belarusians, the Slavs, the Aryans have an origin primarily in Ukraine. So
it's some kind of sacred land that.
It's like a land bridge, that's for sure. It's flat and it connects Asia and Europe.
A lot of their most sacred spots were all along the Dnipro River. And also there's Khortytsa Island, which is in the Dnipro. And Tibetan monks claim their origin to be there in Ukraine, and supposedly even have documentation to prove it. All in this book, but the thing is Yuri Shilov and Anatoly Kafishin, leading archaeologists and Sumerologists, you can't find anything in English except this book. And I've tried to get in touch with him. I've tried to get in touch with Tim and Heather Lee Hooker that have translated some of the work. Nowhere to be found.
Yeah, the Black Sea port makes it such an amazing piece of land to control strategically. You can get into basically the oceans, and you can get all over the continent.
Just a quick thing on the Black Sea. As I was researching a lot of this, I find Putin's face everywhere and all these ancient sites. He goes in this submersible. Check out Putin in a submersible in the Black Sea, going down to the bottom of the Black Sea to find an ancient ship.
Interesting.
And you'll see some of the images where.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
This dude.
What is happening?
You know, if he wasn't.
What
Find
if,
ancient
hold on.
artifacts.
What if Vladimir Putin was actually just like Nick Cage in National Treasure, and they're trying to frame him because he's going to uncover the secrets of Europe?
I did not want this power. I must retrieve that.
Yeah.
all the way out to the Ural Mountains, all these ancient sites that apparently belong to the same core civilization prior to the Sumerians. Putin was everywhere. I found pictures everywhere visiting these ancient sites. So I don't know what it means. I'm just throwing it out there because it's food for thought.
Well, I mean, look, Hitler believed in a lot of occult crazy stuff too, and Putin could be motivated by weird stuff. No idea.
Yeah, the Israelis. I mean, that's a holy land. It's all about that area, and maybe not all about it, but a big part of it is they wanted to be in the area where Jesus was. So a lot of times, I mean, it's culturally there's an importance to people about being in a specific area.
Well, you know, I definitely think World War III is an interesting topic, but it is Friday, so maybe we should actually tone things down and talk about
World War
movies.
IV.
The next one.
No, this one will be a bit more chill, and we'll have it Friday night. Fox News reports Warner Brothers.
If you've had enough of the woke bullshit, and you're tired of paying companies like Harry's and Gillette to hate you,
I'd like to.
Then buy my new razor instead.
Yeah.
Behold, Jeremy's razors. Yes, they're real. Yes, they're fabulous.
Head over to IHateHarrys.com and pre-order your Founders Series razor and shaving cream set today.
I require a target.
There you go.
Removes dialogue from Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore in China. The move comes after the studio received a request to remove lines referencing Dumbledore's gay relationship. My understanding is that that's like the main plot of the movie, but Brett, you saw it, so
Saw it last night, yeah.
So spoiler alerts, I guess.
The secret is that Dumbledore's gay, which really wasn't.
Yeah, watch
which
out.
I know, which
No,
really.
wait. I'm sorry. The movie is called The Secrets of Dumbledore, and the secret is that he's gay.
Basically, but that secret was already spoiled years ago because J.K. Rowling was kind of, when was that? Maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That she was like, oh yeah, he's gay, and a couple of the other characters, you know, are
I didn't
non-binary,
know
whatever.
that. I don't know.
Still, everybody hates her regardless.
I need to target
Um,
something first.
Who were the
But
folks
yeah,
on
I
it?
think here's the thing. I love Harry
Oh,
Potter.
yeah.
The movie was mediocre. It was subpar. And there were like 3 kind of gay points throughout it. Like it started off with some, and there were some like innuendos in like the middle part, and then at the end, like you see Dumbledore and Grindelwald kind of like have their moment of like, who I love
Like
now.
kissing.
No, they're just like they're fighting, but because they are connected, because I forget what happened in the first one, but their like blood is connected because they were lovers or something like that. They technically can't destroy each other.
But that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because
And-
like in Harry Potter, there's like, how is it that no one who ever once loved another person ever fought until now?
Yeah.
Like you have to imagine that would come up quite a bit. You know, it's like that's my ex. I can't fight her because you know.
It reminded me of the same thing when, like, Voldemort and Harry are fighting and the wands, like combust.
Locking
Yeah,
down
fused,
those
that kind of
fucking
thing. It was
bone
that
records.
story. It was a similar vibe. I don't know exactly what lines they removed obviously, because I didn't watch the Chinese version. But,
Doesn't that make like the movie not work if they remove that from the movie?
I feel like I don't know what the other secret would be. It was like I don't like what would the whole plot be? It was just kind of like taking down Grindelwald, but there really was nothing going on. It was
They add
very-
like one scene at the end where after the movie ends, they're like, but wait, what was the secret Dumbledore?
Yeah.
And then he like pulls up his underwear and it's got roses. He's like, I'm wearing rose underwear. And they're like, oh, that's the secret.
Love it.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun,
No
dun, dun.
matter.
I guess
So-
there was another, because Dumbledore's brother is in it, so there is another Dumbledore, and he kind of has like a storyline where there is a secret that's not gay. So I technically think if you remove that, there is another.
Oh, they meant
secret Dumbledore.
they were referring to the non main character Dumbledore,
Yes.
the ancillary character Dumbledore, the title of the film.
One
Yes.
of the things you mentioned that really bugs me is, you know, I think Star Wars did it. They ripped off the Star Wars Episode 4, the first Star Wars ever made, with the, what was it, Episode 7? 7, 8, 9, it was 7. I think they just redid the story, but like
Oh,
in
yeah.
a different form.
It was a shot-for-shot remake, basically. So the Force Awakens is like a New Hope. Just
Did it feel like they did that with Harry Potter? Was it different enough?
It was different enough. It was not as good. The magic was fantastic, though. I mean, it's interesting going back and like watching the original movies, and it's like I remember growing up being like, "Oh, this is so epic," and it's like, "Oh, well, it's kind of campy now."
That's what I was
It'd be-
wondering. Like, did that secret make it to like, oh, you kind of broke the fourth wall. This is too much about this world, not enough about that world.
You could definitely tell. One thing that I learned was that this, I think, was pretty sure, we can correct me if I'm wrong. This was the first Harry Potter film that was produced by Hollywood rather than British
Really?
filmmakers. And I don't know. I mean,
I
you
did
can
not
tell.
know.
There was something
That
about
makes
it that I
sense.
was just like, it
I
didn't
was-
feel right. It didn't feel like it really sat in the universe. Maybe
Again,
that was
I
it.
don't know
But
why
it
would-
was.
Kind of like the
What
last
if they
Matrix.
just What if they just, so J.K. Rowling's been doing these screenplays. The books she wrote were fantastic. I love the Harry Potter series. Seems like these screenplays are just the worst trash I've ever seen, and like just terrible movies.
Is she writing the screenplays?
I'm pretty sure she wrote the screenplays.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be funny if they just they announced the new series and it's effectively like Star Wars, a shot-for-shot remake of the Sorcerer's Stone or whatever. But at the end, it's like the secret isn't the Sorcerer's Stone. It's just like some woke trash about the character was actually a white supremacist. Oh,
Dumbledore the White
Did you see the new Lord of the Rings movie on? I think it's on Amazon. And
It's a series, right?
Yeah, the series. And I saw a screenshot that showed like 170,000 downvotes and like 10,000 upvotes or something. And all these people comment on it. The video's on YouTube, and it's a quote from J.R.R. Tolkien that says, "Evil can never create anything new. It can only twist and destroy what's already been created by good."
That's interesting. The book, The Master Switch, goes into what Hollywood has been doing lately. You notice that almost everything's a remake. It's this algorithm that's saying we know how to predict how continually making Spider-Man, continually making Batman and Wolverine and all that stuff, we know how to predict that. And I think that's also going to dovetail into these, like, did you guys see, what was that, Ready Player One? Okay. Well, there was that racing game where there's Godzilla, and I think there's also King Kong. They're going to immortalize these archetypal characters in these games to live forever. So they become like almost like these fictitious gods and goddesses from the movies. And I would just want to say one thing, like Voldemort you mentioned. The two other names that are like in Russian similar to that is Vladimir and like Voldemort. And so like I keep hearing that relation between Vladimir and Voldemort.
So that was anti-Russian propaganda?
I have no idea.
J.K. Rowling, what did you do?
The new Superman
trending
is
tomorrow
gay.
morning.
Is that
Really?
right?
It's like the son of Superman, but he's a bi, I think.
They were talking about doing that with James Bond, I think.
No, they were gonna do a non-binary. The producer was like, they were like, oh, we're not ruling out that Bond could be a non-binary.
Dude, I
whatever.
legit would love to make short films
And people
that, in no way disparage anybody, but just make the point where it's like, we take James Bond, we do an action scene, and then in the end, the bad guy goes, James, you gay? And he goes, yes, and that's the end of it. And it's like, I don't say that to. This is not a critique of the LGBTQ community. It's a critique of Hollywood. Just like to predict how they would play these movies out, how they would do character development, instead of being like, here's what I like. I like it when there's character development, and you understand the character or you relate to a certain emotion. What I don't like is when they're just like, Dumbledore's gay. It's like, okay, look, if Dumbledore, as part of the plot, was in love with a guy, I'd be like, oh, okay, like, show me the motivation, help me understand it. If the secret of the movie is literally that Dumbledore likes men, and they've been hammering this point, I'm just like, guys, you didn't make a movie. You just make a commercial where it ends with Dumbledore saying he's gay.
A social point rather than good writing.
I was gonna say, so from the back side of it, because I was an actor for 10 years, and then while I was in college, my whole plan had been to then go into production and be a producer, and that's what I wanted to do. So I was working at an Academy Award-winning production company. It was an indie company, and what I loved about it was that they only produced deeply character-driven narratives, brilliant stories. And during BLM, I was working with them around COVID as well. Everything swapped, and instead of I was on the development team, so part of my job was reading every single script submission that we would get and breaking it down. And it switched from, Brett, tell us about the character motivations and what makes these characters tick. What do we learn from it? What is the audience grasping at the end? The things that I think are important to. Do we have a Native American story? We don't have this. We scrapped 70% of the projects that we had agreed to fund and do because they did not tick off enough of the boxes.
Did ownership change, or was?
They was just we're not going to produce it. So it was just went back to the screenwriters. We can't do it. And then my job became not let's seek out these fantastic new writers. Read whatever comes in. It was you need to actively go find things that we can acquire that are a trans, female Native American story, so that we can be the social justice, whatever. It truly got so separated from what I think is the most beautiful part of entertainment, why I love entertainment, why I love, movies and storytelling. It was truly just, let's check a political box.
Was it like the ownership of when I asked about the ownership of the company that you worked at, did they change?
Oh, no,
Was it
no.
different people?
Nope.
They just started acting differently?
Yeah.
Social
Could
engineering.
it? Well, what I was thinking is it possible that maybe in the past 10
Fuck your buddy.
or 15 years, a species of small slugs descended on Earth and crawled into people's ears and started to attach themselves and take over their minds and bodies. Is that one way it may have happened?
Yeah. What are those?
100%.
What are those little
I was gonna say
space bears
100%.
called? Those
Yerks.
little-
Water bears.
Yeah,
No,
water
you
bears.
guys ever read Animorphs?
No.
No.
That when I was a kid, and I think they're called Yerks.
I wonder
little
if.
brain slugs take over
Oh,
your brain.
this kind of came up with Ben Shapiro. He was on the show a couple days ago. We did an afternoon show that's going to be on timcast.com, I think on Sunday.
No, it's gonna be on. We'll put it on YouTube.
Okay,
on
cool.
Sunday. Yeah,
And
cool.
we were talking about just basically facts and how come sometimes you just can't convince people of things. And I think when someone's really agitated, like when someone's really emotionally calm, facts speak
Yeah,
volumes.
because
It's
the
easy to pay
cleaver,
attention
Mr.
and change your
Beaver.
mind and change your thoughts. When you're
throw
agitated
them
and
at each other.
crazy, almost nothing can make you destabilize. Like no matter what comes up, it doesn't matter because you're freaking out. And if like this Wi-Fi is freaking, if all this energy that we're pouring through the air is like causing people to go nuts, haywire. I don't know the word. And so they're not able to stay cool when things like you're saying social engineering, when things like BLM, and it may even contribute to the rise of these social movements. But I think that's more like a CCP long war game. But that it's just overly impacting people because of the environment.
That's why it's when people say, oh, we just need to, like, how do you convince people of, how do you red pill them, whatever. It's like, just speak the truth. It's like, you can't just do that. Like, we can, talk about facts all day long, but if you are not meeting people on their own turf, if you're not, doing what Daily Wire does and creating culture, what Timcast does, all of this, if you are not, communicating with them in a way that is relatable and tangible and engaging and, is taking into account emotions, especially with the younger generations, where we are, all hell is breaking loose at all time. Like, you cannot just convince people with facts alone. It has to be.
Did it
It's
feel,
not possible.
when you were growing up, did it feel like all hell was breaking loose when you were younger too?
Not at
He's
all, but I
Lava
was in a
Lash when
very
it gets above 6.
not contained
Depending on
environment,
whether
but I
I'm-
just didn't
have
decide to
other
go to
cooldowns
public
to
school.
be-
I was homeschooled for my entire life.
Obviously, it's the only thing up I
I went to public school for 3 years. I did kindergarten, first grade, maybe second grade, and then I did my freshman year of high school, and I was like, this place is awful, and I left. So as a result, I was not in the midst of all of that. I saw it when I got to college and while I was working in Hollywood, but I think I was so, focused on my own internal whatever that it just didn't even faze me.
I wanted to go back to your point you said about facts and convincing people. I actually think that facts typically play a small role.
Yeah.
It's almost always emotion. So
3,000
you want to make
damage
someone feel
secret.
something.
How?
When I was doing
Don't
when I
tell me
worked in
you wasted
fundraising
up.
for nonprofits, it's all emotion. If you go to someone and you'd say, hi, I'd like to give you some facts about this catastrophe we're facing. Did you know that every day we do X, Y, and Z? And this is where they're going to be like, yeah, okay, thanks, have a nice day. No, you've got to, they say the first thing is create a sense of urgency. That's right, you have to convince them something is imperiled now.
After lunch,
You
honey.
can't just tell them the truth, you have to create. They would say create a sense of urgency. And you have to make them personally invested. You have to make them, there's several ways you can do it. There's things like, if we're going to talk about a faraway land, we have to make you to blame. Because why would you care about a faraway land? Oh, because it's your fault. If we're going to talk about an issue that does affect you, then you're the victim here, and you've got to help fight back. Like we got to hold these people accountable. There's always a way to emotionally trigger someone, either through a demand for justice or through guilt. There's an emotion you're trying to target to make them take a certain.
Yep, that's pink. It
I
just
hated that industry.
different.
It's
That's what I was
fun.
doing before this.
With the
That's what I was
lighting.
doing this summer was doing the copywriting and what is it called? I worked for an organization, did it, but where you're writing, the
Copy for pages.
yeah, and fundraising letters and all of that stuff. Like there is basically a blueprint that you follow to get boomers to donate money to you.
And these blueprints are typically they're formulaic. They're typically trash, but the formula's right. They just what they do is they know the formula. There's actually a step-by-step process. So these companies will give you a sheet, and it'll give you 5 boxes, and it'll explain what each box needs to do, and then you write in those boxes, how would you convey the idea? So it says like 1, introduction, 2, sense of urgency, 3, problem, 4, solution, 5, pitch, and then you're like. They say, follow this formula, write it out.
Let me do this
A lot
dungeon
of
and we'll
companies
go.
will pre-write these things, hoping that if they hire 100 people, give them the script, 20 of them make it. The rest gets fired a week later.
I'm good.
And so, I always thought those were trash because people don't, like, you'll see them on the street, like, hi, how are you doing? I'm so-and-so working with such and such. We have a huge problem, blah, blah, blah. It's all boring and formulaic. If you know how to read people, how they move, how they act, then this job becomes insanely easy, but it is almost always an emotional argument. You're either trying to convince them that you're cool and right and they should be on your side, trying to convince them that they should be guilty for being at fault for contributing to this, or that someone is screwing them over. You're never just saying, do you care about the environment? Yes. What's the most concerning thing to you? One of the problems we're fighting is deforestation. Are you concerned about the removal of trees in large numbers? People will be like, I'm sorry, I don't have time for this, and they'll leave. But if you say something like, when you go and do X, Y, or Z, you are destroying every step of the way. I know you don't mean to do it. None of us do. But don't you think that you should, help clean it up a little bit? Of course you should. I know you're a good person. Right. You're not the kind of person who's going to make a mess.
At Hue, we're on a journey to put the health, welfare, and happiness of humans above all else in the food we make. Why? Because a few years back, we discovered that the food we were eating made us feel like junk. When we checked the ingredients, we learned why. Junk is what it was made with. Additives, artificial preservative.
At someone's house and leave it there, would you? Of course not. Okay, credit card, please.
I wonder, and Ben, again, I ask you because you're one of my favorite people on earth. No, you're very intelligent.
Just kidding. Actually, just
no,
kidding.
you are my favorite. I don't play favorites. I'm talking about the past. Is there like some historiological, reason that we're so tuned into emotion?
Well, I don't think we're hardwired for fact. We're hardwired for story. Look at what we've done since time immemorial. Sat around, told stories. You could be like, I'm going to tell you the facts of my day. I hunted this thing and I hunted that thing. But it always ended with the shaman or the chief or somebody wrapping it into a mythological story. And there's a mythos that basically captures every generation, every civilization. There's some kind of narrative, like an overarching narrative. One big one from the Bible is that there will be a savior, and be on the lookout for that savior. And I think we are hardwired for narrative. And the thing about what's happening in the world today, I'll just say this: you don't have to get people if I wanted to engage your emotions to get you to do something in the world, and then to do that to large groups of people. Destabilizing people's sense of equilibrium first, which is basic training. They did that with me. You get the people into a state of stress. It destabilizes their default mode network. It almost puts them into a psychedelic, suggestible state. And then what seems to be the context, things that I'm not making you do, but I'm kind of filling in the blanks of what's happening contextually, will create a worldview where like, oh shit, because of everything you just said, I realize what I have to do. And that's setting up the set and setting, destabilizing you and suggesting and planting seeds, not being overt and on the nose.
Let's just, going off what you said, this is what I thought of. Let me tell you about the hunt I went on. So I went out into the woods. I had my rifle with me. There were some issues. We saw the buck. I lined it up. We got it. It was great. Big guy. Let's try another version. So there I was, walking through this mud. I see the beast. Massive.
Dim the lights.
I get my rifle ready. I'm jammed. It notices me. I take the shot. We got it. We go over there. This thing was magnificent, beautiful, the biggest you've ever seen. Oh, which would people prefer to hear? Right, you're driving emotion. You're trying to create a sense of what's happening. So storytelling. I think about these. We play D&D or Magic the Gathering or whatever, and you've got these games based on goblins. And I'm like, you know why there are stories about goblins? Because some guy went to go sell beans at the market, and while he's walking through the woods, he comes across some ugly dude who's yelling about something or other. And he's like, everybody's always coming here and messing things up. This is my road. I've been working on it. It's like, get out of here, dude. And he walks away. When he goes back home, he doesn't say some guy yelled at him. He goes, so I'm walking through the woods, and a vile creature emerges with a crooked nose and pointed ears, and he snarls. And I'm like, back, beast! And I draw my blade. And so people tell these stories. Someone writes it down and draws pictures, and they're like, wow. And then we imagine these vicious monsters and these giant there I was fighting the dragon, and it's like a small lizard.
Homo florensis, that hominid. I think those are maybe where the fantasy goblins come from. Those little small humans, and they were, I think, they historically would eat human children. Like they would steal
They
them.
found some new ones a couple of years ago.
They would steal
2019.
Yeah, this is what I've heard.
There's also
they found new.
Yeah.
mythological stories of small people like the Menehune in Hawaii, and also like many of the islands that apparently
we
built
back.
all
It's
the
kind of rough.
structures
I'm doing
before
for family.
the regular stature people would get there. There's stories of little people and giants everywhere.
Oh yeah,
Native
that's
Americans had a lot of
Denisovans, I
stories.
think they're called, the giants.
Right, but like cannibalistic giants, Native Americans from Pennsylvania all the way down to Tennessee, actually.
Say that there's cannibalistic giants.
Giants, yeah.
Like, are they weird, large humans that are kind of naked and can all be killed by slicing the nape of their neck?
No,
Do
but
you know
go
what I was-
on.
Did you know what I was referencing?
No.
You laughed. Oh, it's Attack on Titan.
Oh, okay.
A long
Yeah, but you
run,
laughed.
man.
I was like, are you
really?
all the guys in chat are gonna be like, but I guess not. So guys, calm down.
I also think you have a good voice for story. You should do some voiceover like that. That's
Oh yeah, I'm,
Do some audiobooks.
I'm Dr. Fauci and Freedom Tunes.
Yeah.
I love it.
But now that Fauci's out of the news cycle, I'm out of work, man.
Yeah,
Well, I think this is a great opportunity for you to start storytelling again.
Well, I asked Seamus if he would let me voice Nancy Pelosi on his show, and I don't think he wants to.
But she talks like this, like her mouth is falling from her face. I think Donald Trump.
I definitely go over the top with it on purpose because
That's what we have to do.
I don't like her.
Okay, so maybe we are in the psychological world. I think it's a storytelling era. And you're an actor. I was an actor, Ben. I mean, you're a performer.
I went through acting classes mainly to learn how to write.
yeah.
Tim,
But it-
creator, performer.
Yeah, but I was just gonna say, like, I growing up as an actor, I would get a lot of crap, especially from like family members who were like, "You're too smart to be being in entertainment, doing whatever." Like, well, everything that we're saying that we are, humanity is inherently, narrative based. I mean, everything we learn from stories. That's why, we spend however many hours of our week consuming movies and television shows. Everything that we learn is subconsciously coming from the stories that we are watching, and it's so important. And so it always disappointed me when people were going, "Well, why are you doing that?" It's like, well, I feel like I could be. This is the most important work that I could be doing if I'm, leveraging my craft basically in a way that is meaningful and that I think is aligned with my values. There's nothing better because that's the way that people learn. That's the way that you change minds. That's why it's like I don't. Not want to give up on Hollywood, but not want to give up on entertainment and the power that it holds.
So, I think what Ian was trying to say is that when I tell you this next story, instead of saying Joe Biden mocked for shaking hands with thin air after speech, I should go, so there he was.
Oh my gosh.
Biden turned to his right. In his mind, the hallucination of a strong man reaching out to shake his hand. Biden reached, but there was nothing.
But the
So
best part of this is
Was
Stars
it
and Stripes
Neuralink?
is on top of all of that happening. With the band playing it. It's
Oh
great.
yeah. So Joe Biden claims that
Society puts the smartest and the best in power. I don't understand. This is just derangement.
well, they hated Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And they were willing to take the craziest, laziest, out of his mindiest. So that's what we get. I don't think Joe Biden will be able to run in 2024.
Absolutely not.
I mean, Ben was saying that they're going to strap him to a gurney, but I'm like, come on, yeah, I guess, but even that's not going to work.
Maybe he'll run and then try and make somebody else look good.
You know what his slogan would be? Tuner on a shot of pressure.
Or next no recent.
Yeah. Or that.
And Batakefkir. Here's a new one. Remember when he said the United States can be summed up in one word, and he said, or something like that. I didn't.
My
care to
favorite is
change.
just "We're back."
We're back.
We're back. That's the only thing he can actually say coherently is "We're back."
Oh, he could say, "Come on,
That was a
man."
nice 14.
Yeah.
We almost chewed it, but
It's gonna get
somehow we
real.
managed to fluff
He's
that
good at saying
boss fight
Putin
with
caused
loss.
inflation.
Or go,
And we went
yeah.
right back
Or
in.
go get him. That was the end of his State of the Union.
I had a like button cool on YouTube. Like, that is to say, he's neither left or right. He's left on something.